Hey guys, we are going to talk about this TMZ interview that, well, TMZ put it together. It was syndicated through some Fox channels. It's now available in full if you want to watch the whole thing on streaming platforms like Hulu. I think it should be uploaded by now, if not by the end of the day. We're going to look at it and we're going to talk about it. And as we're going through it, I want you guys, for any given detail, it doesn't need to be your conclusion or what you think the case will end up, what verdict you think will end up coming out of the trial. But for any given detail that this, docuseries puts in, comment along the way and let us know if you think something looks good for the defense, or if you think it hurts the defense, or if you have questions about the way TMZ or anyone speaking at any given moment is framing something. Right before we jump in, I think it'll be great for us to look at some quick quotes from the motion hearing, where the prosecution's sharing their thoughts on things that are being leaked to the press, and the defense responds about why they think it's their right to do something like this TMZ docuseries. And then, yeah, it was a bit of a pain in the butt to watch. I ended up watching it on YouTube TV, not regular YouTube. But I think it should be on Hulu sometime today, it said. And then let me switch over. Let's get these quotes, because these quotes are kind of nice and succinct. They'll set a good stage for us looking at this interview. So Radar Online, it says exclusive, but they're really just pulling quotes from the motion hearing that you may have watched or seen my summary on. But they do pull really quick quotes. They're saying, in an explosive new court filing submitted on January 31st, which the judge is supposed to issue a ruling on today, Clenney's attorney, Frank Prito, was slammed for what was described as increasingly inappropriate conduct ahead of a documentary. I do want to clarify here, this, at least during the motion hearing, was clarified as being something separate from this TMZ docuseries. This inappropriate conduct was Frank Prito apparently walking a gray line and blurting out while on an interview with Court TV something about sexual abuse by Christian Obumseli's father on Christian Obumseli, basically positing into the public that he was a victim of something traumatic in his childhood that would set him up to maybe have certain mental health issues or behavioral patterns as an adult in life. In other words, it's something that Frank Prito sprinkled out there, in my opinion, to set the stage of this mutually abusive relationship where on April 3rd, it resulted in a justification defense for Courtney Clenney to stab Christian Obumseli because of something he was doing. So Radar Online kind of gets this wrong a little bit. This increasingly inappropriate conduct wasn't specifically about the TMZ docuseries. It's the judge that first brings up that she hears a docuseries is being released about this case. Both the defense and the prosecution have their thoughts about it, and we do get some quick quotes there. Let's see. Oh, there's so many ads on this. Jesus, Radar Online. Get it together. So the respondent, so this is coming from the prosecution here. The respondent, which is the defense, attempts to justify his conduct by suggesting that he must comment on the instant case. So the case here that's still waiting to be tried, the case we're dealing with right now. That he must comment on the instant case to counter public narratives or incorrect reporting by the media or public, according to the docs. Or put another way, and I can pull that off the screen, or put another way, the respondent is seeking to litigate the instant case in the court of public opinion. So in this motion hearing, the prosecution's like, hey, you're weighing all this in the court of public opinion, and yet you're accusing us of doing the same because Frank Prito has criticized the initial press release. So if you guys remember back in August of 2022, when Courtney Clenney was finally arrested, it was like 4 months after the stabbing actually occurred, they did a big press release out of Miami-Dade, and at the press release, they showed this elevator video, which we're going to see twice in this docuseries. But they showed that video during the press release, and Frank Prito, the defense, said that was carefully calculated to sway public opinion unduly so. So let's get into what we're all waiting for. And as we go along, I want you guys to, anything that catches your attention, just, let's do this. I'll make a little banner. We can put a 1 in the chat. And this is for any detail as it goes, just so we can get a quick census. if one detail that shows up on the screen or is being said in the moment, put a 1 if you think it helps the defense, put a 2 if you think it's bad for the defense. So 1 is good for Courtney, 2 is bad for Courtney. Let me see. And then I suddenly don't have volume, so let me refresh this. Or I'll play it through my video player. All right, let me switch to my video player. Which is going to be a little bit annoying because the video player is not that good on Windows.
But now she's in a jail cell, accused of murder.
All right, let's start from the beginning.
Baby, wake up. Courtney.
My boyfriend is dying of a stab wound.
Courtney Clenney was hell-bent on becoming the next Kim Kardashian.
Hey guys.
They do a
Courtney
lot
was
of Kim
on the
Kardashian comparisons
path
that I
in the
did not
sense
include in
that
this.
She was working towards kind of building this brand.
But now she's in a jail cell, accused of murder, where she could spend the rest of her life. Courtney claims it was self-defense.
I swear to God, I was scared.
But prosecutors say even she admits she was a ticking time bomb.
Raise your hand if you think you're toxic. Raise your hand.
And they pull the "We in Miami" quote.
But was it a two-way street?
I'm 100% sure that it was at that point in time and that instance that it was Christian being aggressive towards Courtney.
If this hadn't happened, it would be her funeral we were talking about.
Now, listen to this audio really closely. They're going to pull this clip of when everything happens in the first one to get there.
Sit down. Do me that first. Sit down. Do not move. Sit down.
A popular...
So in the moment, and you can see that this is right outside of her, if you're familiar with how her penthouse works, there's an elevator that goes right up to, it lets out on like a waiting room, a lobby sort of before the doors to her penthouse. It's a private floor. And she's sitting right near the elevator doors. In the corner here, you can see the 22 for the little elevator marker. But here, the first responder or the detective, whoever's on the scene right here, is telling her just to calm down. And she's like, "Why are you yelling at me? Why are you yelling at me?" And I thought that was really interesting behavior.
Please. Sit down. Do me that first. Sit down. Do not move. Sit down.
A popular young OnlyFans star named Courtney Clenney killed her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli. Courtney was just 25 years old. Christian, 27.
Devastation doesn't quite describe what my family is experiencing right now. Yesterday, we finally told our 93-year-old grandmother that her grandson, who was expected to come home to Texas to visit for his 28th birthday, will no longer or ever be returning home.
Now, it's worth noting that the Obumseli family did not respond to participate in this TMZ interview. They're going to pull some clips that, like we just saw. I believe that was from the press conference. They're also going to pull some clips from the Dr. Phil show. So they are trying to offer some perspective from the other side, even though they didn't participate with a new interview. But here, I have this preface here. We're going to look at how TMZ characterizes the relationship.
The evidence will show an intensely toxic relationship for years and paint a disturbing picture of how things went from this to this.
A lot of what we're going to see here may not be admissible in court, but you will get background info in court to how she grew up to try to humanize her.
Courtney grew up in an ordinary middle-class family in the quiet suburbs of Austin, Texas. Even at a very young age, she had stars in her eyes.
Who's the big chipmunk now?
1, 2, 3.
Happy-go-lucky kid, very generous, very loving, trusting. But also, then I think you've said ambitious.
Ambitious for sure. Courtney was clear early on. She wanted fame and fortune, and her biggest inspiration, Kim Kardashian. Courtney was obsessed and wanted to mirror her own life after Kim's.
Girls today much more want to be someone like Kim Kardashian than Meryl Streep. When you look at the model of success, Kim Kardashian is it. Meryl's a famous actress, but Kim is a multinational brand.
Courtney saw the reality.
There is a big chunk of this interview that's devoted to letting Taylor Lorenz, who's a culture reporter, speak about how OnlyFans is the way for creators to become celebrities and that it's a way to make a ton of money, which is true enough. But I think it's overfocused. It's not that relevant to the case. It just seems like they're throwing this idea of Kim Kardashian in here to get extra attention on the docuseries for me. If you want to see those clips in full, they're not really germane to what I'm trying to get at here. Whereas, is it the defense making a good case and countering misreporting and bad information and poor context of other things that have been reporting? Or is this the defense trying to sway the court of public opinion? But there's literally 10 minutes of just them comparing Courtney Clenney wanting to be Kim Kardashian that is not included in this video here.
Shows of the day and saw the wealth and the lifestyle, and she thought that seemed pretty good, because we're just boring people, and she wanted to be wealthy, and so she kind of made it happen.
What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be making 2 Q&A videos. I decided that I would split it into 2, one personal and one fitness.
Courtney put her plan into action, starting a YouTube channel featuring her in bikini competitions.
I'm really excited. I really hope I place. If not, I have more shows coming up soon I just haven't told you guys about.
Posting fitness videos on Instagram and amassing a huge following. For Courtney, there was one obstacle. She wasn't raking in the cash, at least not yet. So she took a job at an Austin strip club.
Now, I pulled this thing because it was a big deal back in the November hearings that the father, he was asked, well, did you know about your daughter's online career? And he was like, well, no, I didn't know what she was doing. He doesn't really answer specifically in the motion hearings when he came to know that, but we're actually going to hear him speak on it a bit more in this interview. Let me know if you what you think, because it's reasonable to think, hey, a daughter might not tell their father, hey, I'm stripping and I'm doing OnlyFans and I'm following this progression into adult entertainment. But at the same time, it seems like they were kind of a close family, and we'll see that the dad, at least after the stabbing, immediately has access to her finances that she earned from OnlyFans. So I thought this was interesting that they talked about this in this interview. And remember, they interviewed with TMZ around January 3rd of this year. They weren't arrested. The warrants for their arrest didn't get issued until the end of January. So all of this stuff that we're going to see from the parents is before the laptop issue became an issue.
It's interesting because Kim Kardashian became famous via a sex tape. And I just found it kind of interesting that early on, Courtney worked at a strip club. I'm wondering, when you heard she was doing that, what your reaction was.
Well, it certainly wasn't okay. We wouldn't have condoned that. But as you know, when somebody's an adult, you can't control everything that they're going to do. I don't know how long she had been doing that before we found out. But yeah, we did go, tracked her down and went in and wanted to drag her out. But, that couldn't do that.
Make sure that you're following me on OnlyFans.
When Courtney heard about the adults-only platform OnlyFans, she saw dollar signs.
Oh wait, that's for OnlyFans, guys. Link in bio.
I don't know how long she was doing OnlyFans before I found out. I didn't know what OnlyFans was. We haven't seen any content on there, but I'm sure she knew that we would disapprove, so she didn't tell us about it.
Do you think they've seen any content on there now? Let's watch that little bit again. He's like, we didn't see any content on there.
On there, but I'm sure. I don't know how long she was doing OnlyFans before I found out. I didn't know what OnlyFans was, and we haven't seen any content on there, but I'm sure she knew that we would disapprove, so she didn't tell us about it. You have to wonder when somebody's making so much money, how they're doing it.
Ooh, love that. Yes.
Courtney's OnlyFans stardom was starting to take off when, in November 2020, she met Christian, a cryptocurrency trader.
Palm Springs, baby.
Christian, who also went by Toby, grew up 3 hours away in the suburbs of Dallas. The youngest of 5 children, he played football in high school, then studied engineering at Texas Tech.
Everybody loved him. He was just fun to be around, full of life, full of joy.
Courtney and Christian fell in love. Early on, Christian wrote Courtney a letter saying he never felt so close to someone he had just met.
Toby had told the family about.
It's my understanding that that letter is introduced in discovery. Whether or not it'll be admissible, I don't know, but I think they'll see. I think the jury will be able to see like this love letter that he wrote, as well as we've seen some text messages. If you haven't gone over them, there were some text messages in February 2022, so just a month and a week about before the stabbing took place. I'll pull them up when they become relevant here, but we are going to get some of that stuff that will be admissible. A lot of this character evidence, that's going to be, the prosecution's going to want to humanize Christian Obumseli. They're going to want to tell the jury, like, hey, he was a good person, he was loved, he's missed, we need to bring his family justice. And the defense is going to try to humanize Courtney to say, you know, go along with their self-defense. You know, she wouldn't have done this if she didn't have to do it. So we're watching a documentary, so they obviously want to create a story, right? And you got to have your character development. But the trial you will see elements of this going on in any normal trial.
His new girlfriend when he came home for Thanksgiving in 2020. And so he shows us her Instagram, and he has stated that, you know, she was an OnlyFans model. And I just remember telling Toby, you know, like, is this something you're going to be serious about or whatnot? But he was really excited.
Christian quickly became intoxicated by Courtney's OnlyFans fame, accompanying her on shoots.
Oh my God.
Now this is where that video
Underneath it
came
all
from.
lurked a relationship that was not just toxic.
So that like ice bucket video is that like collaborator content trip that they went on in Aspen. We'll see clips of that Aspen fight video, but that's the most recent video that got released and went public, and there's been some debate over who's responsible for leaking it, because the defense blamed the estate, the family, the lawyer representing the Christian Obumseli estate for leaking it, but really it was released through public record by the prosecution as they submitted it in discovery. But yeah, just so you recognize that ICE video was beginning of February 2022, so just about 2 months before everything happens.
Not just violent.
Fine. Hopefully, shut up. You will never see me again. You are the most.
It would eventually prove deadly.
What is going on? The other one is right here. I was Ranger. Scared. I just think I didn't.
Courtney Clenney sprawled out on the floor, a bloody mess, as she held her dying boyfriend in her arms. The boyfriend she had just fatally wounded with a knife.
We have an unresponded male. The apartment is full of blood.
Their lives destroyed. Christian is dead. Courtney is charged with second-degree murder. Turns out it was a long time in coming.
This is where they're going to finally stop talking about the childhood, and I think it's interesting the way TMZ frames this. I don't think it's great. They will frame it as like entering the life of wealth, party, and drugs. But let me know what you guys think about this framing now that we're done talking about baby Courtney and young Christian Obumseli.
To 1.6 million of you guys following me on social media, and that is freaking crazy.
She became so popular, she caught the eye of G-Eazy, who cast her in a music video.
Even when the night is cold, I got that fire in my soul.
But it was OnlyFans that paid the bills. She raked in $3 million in just 2 years, posting explicit content. Christian wanted in on the action. He became her manager of sorts and got a percentage of what Courtney was bringing in. They would go on content shoots together all over the world, shooting videos with other OnlyFans stars.
Do I have to do this? Are we sure? Go.
We did it. But other OnlyFans models saw things, troubling things, between Courtney and Christian.
It was just a weird vibe when they were.
And let's look at a tweet that Patty made yesterday. Let me pull that up. So I bookmarked it. So we're looking at Patty K on the screen. We're going to see what she says about Christian and Courtney and what they were like together. But I noticed this yesterday and I was looking just for some reactions to this docuseries. She shared this right away. So, this is Patty K. The episode just started and I'm already crying. The situation with Courtney Clenney, aka Courtney Taylor, hits so close to home. I was also there and saw shit go down. Go watch it for yourself on Fox now. So, interesting there. Let's see what she says.
Together, because you never know what was going to happen between the two of them. I met Courtney and Christian on a content trip in Palm Springs. And when I arrived there, my manager gave me the down low on who I should work with and who I should stay away from. One person he did warn me about was Courtney, saying that she's a little wild, saying that Courtney gets drunk, Courtney does drugs, and to, get in, get the content with her, and get out. The thing that stood out to me the most, and I will remember it to this day, is the way Christian was offering drugs to Courtney very quickly, very freely. Christian would literally kind of on a platter be like, here's coke, do this line.
It seems like Christian liked when she was a little bit up. I'm not sure why.
Drugs and alcohol were not just ways to blow off steam and have fun.
Now, have you guys heard the discourse about, there was like a big story in Atlanta that came out about, and it's not like the only situation where this happens, but photographers or videographers doing a private, like usually unpaid shoot with a model, right? They're bartering, oh, I'll do photos of you for your portfolio and you can help me build mine. But there's like this thing sometimes where, a photographer tries to take advantage of an unpaid younger model. And to me, hearing this, it seems like this is the way they're framing Christian Obumseli and how he would be during these content collaboration trips with Courtney Clenney. Obviously, Courtney being the model and Christian being like the skeezy photographer. But that's not what this situation is at all. They're in a relationship, right? That's a huge difference. They are in a relationship together mutually. 2, she's already a paid working model. Whether or not someone taking the photos of her is paying her directly, any content that she makes, we just heard she made $3 million from OnlyFans. She's directly monetizing the content that she's getting, whether a photographer chooses to pay her or not. 3rd, they're dating. So if they're consuming substances together at any point in time, they're doing that consensually. So I feel like Patty K, her part in this, her little line in this docuseries and the way she tweeted about it, she's treating it like some stranger photographer that ends up trying to take advantage of a model, which is a thing that can happen, right? But call me crazy, is that not a weird comparison to make when you're talking about a boyfriend-girlfriend manager-work relationship? I believe he participated in some of the content himself also, so that makes him a model and a content collaborator in the same vein. Like, do you think that's like a parallel to an appropriate parallel to frame this as, a photographer taking advantage of young model that doesn't know better? Because that's kind of how I felt like it was being framed.
They fueled tempers, especially Courtney's. Temper targeted squarely at Christian.
Let's have a You talk to her!
Courtney, you're drunk right now, and it's hard to talk to you right now.
The crazy thing about Courtney and Christian is that from the outside, their relationship looked like it was perfect. But once they started drinking and getting a little loose, that's when you would start to see them get angry and start to fight. And it would go from 0 to 100 very fast.
A beautiful young woman who achieved so much fame and fortune ends up covered in blood in her.
Does it matter that she's beautiful? Like, does it matter?
Apartment floor. Her boyfriend, Christian Toby Obumseli, dying in her arms. She's now accused of murder.
He was a friend to everyone. Very caring, funny, very bright. He had big dreams.
He was a really good guy. For anything to happen to him of that type of nature is like, it doesn't make sense.
In public settings, they seemed like a very normal, healthy couple.
Aiden is.
If he looks familiar, this is the neighbor. If you've seen me talk about it in other videos, he lives below them in Texas. He'll talk about it a little bit. But he's the one that had the painting fly down from their balcony above while they were fighting. While Clenney and Obumseli were fighting. He ends up getting this tiger painting, and he shows it to the local news in a separate interview. The painting, like, flops over the balcony and lands in his balcony while they're fighting upstairs. So that's the same neighbor.
Visky lived directly below the couple's penthouse apartment in Austin.
It was definitely a different couple behind closed doors. We would hear shouting, we would hear things shattering, we would hear loud crashing come from upstairs all the time.
Let's say 1 is silent and 10 is ballistic.
I would say 8 to 10.
It was that loud.
It was that loud.
And this is a huge issue for admissibility in the trial. So if something's happening in your apartment and, you know, we've seen some secret recordings by Christian Obumseli, it's not clear that all of those phone recordings will come in, especially if most of those arguments are dealing with the same topic. The defense can start to argue, hey, we've already got one recording coming in where we hear Courtney using certain language. The jury gets to hear that she used that language. We don't need to hear it 4 or 5 times. It's becoming more prejudicial than probative. And they could whittle it down to maybe 1 or 2 secretly recorded audio recordings could come in. But then there's also the issue of, you know, privacy. And if Courtney didn't know that something was being recorded, if it was in her home, there's an expectation of privacy that could lean towards something being inadmissible. But when you have neighbors, and this isn't just in their Texas apartment, in their Austin apartment with this neighbor, when you have neighbors in the Miami penthouse saying, hey, we're 1 floor away, we're 2 floors away, and we hear them fighting, that becomes a decent entry point for the prosecution to start arguing, look, there's no expectation of privacy if you're arguing so loudly that people 2 floors away are calling the police and complaining about the noise. So what is being put in this TMZ interview, they don't come out and say it explicitly, but it goes to the admissibility of certain evidence that normally would just be, hey, there's a privacy concern. This recording took place in a private residence and it shouldn't be admissible, but kind of becomes admissible once everybody around you is also hearing it.
Courtney moved out of their unit. They had to do 2 weeks of renovations. It was completely destroyed.
In July 2021,
So 2 weeks of renovations to clean up the apartment after they moved out. And they weren't together that long. I don't think they lived there for a full year. And they had to do 2 weeks of renovations to clean out that apartment and re-rent it.
Months after they started dating, the couple had a nasty fight in a Las Vegas hotel room. Courtney called hotel security to have Christian removed. Security then called the cops.
Morning. Why did you call for help?
Because we were getting really loud.
This is in the beginning of their relationship, like months into it, not even.
They need to have him removed from the room.
Did anybody hit, punch, spit each other?
More the story, like I was on the couch, like she threw the glass thing and about my face. Then I went back to bed and I was like, why'd you do?
Did you remember throwing the glass?
No, I don't. But that sounds like me.
So this is an example of where I'm like, all right, there's definitely things in this docuseries that do not look good for Courtney. Obviously, they're going to arrest her here. An arrest is not going to look good. But that little line right there where she says, oh, do you remember throwing the glass at Christian Novoselic? Because he says, I don't know where it came from, but she got mad. A glass flew by me. She tried to throw a glass at my face. She's like, well, I don't remember throwing the glass, but that sounds like me. So that certainly will not look good for Courtney Clenney, either in court or in the court of public opinion.
Throwing the glass?
No, you don't. But that sounds like me.
Courtney was arrested and charged with domestic battery. The charge was later dropped. Video of their room shows remnants of a violent fight, including what appears to be a clump of Courtney's hair on the floor. Evidence.
And just that quickly, they're like, hey, wait, it could have been justified. But I'm no, beautician, but it looks to me like Courtney Clenney wears hair extensions. Maybe someone in the chat can help me out here. Does this look like evidence that someone was the victim of a fight? Or could it just be an extension coming out in the middle of a tussle of some sort? Because that doesn't look like the full length of hair. It looks like it's kind of short. But what do I know? I don't have hair.
Christian may have been violent that night as well. He denied it and was never charged with a crime.
Has she ever threatened to kill you? Do you think she might try to kill you?
No, I was sober for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And now why am I not sober? Because of you. You're hindering my progress.
A few months later, this fight went down during an OnlyFans content shoot in Aspen.
Christian, you're fired.
It's fine.
Hopefully, shut up. Hopefully,
You are the most
good piece of shit.
ever been.
Hopefully, you want to
Warning.
Dude, get out of here. This isn't even house.
Yeah.
Get out. For real. I never want to see you.
So they do show a decent chunk of that Aspen video. Even though they show a slew of pictures, I'm kind of surprised they don't show, these pictures from the trip. These are while she was in Aspen, presumably after that video that we saw was filmed. She ends up doing this photo shoot, but her knuckles are taped up. She's got cuts. You can't see it in this picture. I have a different one. Let's see. Is it this one? She's all bruised up here. And then here she's got a cut that looks like freshly bleeding. Like she got in a fight with him and then went and took these photos. And these are available. I was able to find them. So I thought it was interesting that TMZ didn't include it, even though they're including a bunch of different pictures.
In early 2022, Courtney and Christian wanted a fresh start, so they moved from Austin to Miami. Courtney rented a luxury condo overlooking Biscayne Bay. Christian moved right in.
Shut up! Let me slap you, dumbass!
You're not gonna slap me.
Give me my phone!
You have your phone.
I don't have it anymore. Find it and charge it. Find it and charge it!
I'm sorry, Courtney.
I don't care. Find it and charge it.
Hey, just stop.
Don't touch me.
Yeah.
It didn't take long for neighbors to start complaining about Courtney and Christian's loud fights in the apartment.
Tenants as far as 2 floors above, in an apartment 2 floors above, were making complaints to security and building management about the noises and the ruckus.
More signs of violence. Texts from Christian revealed he was headed to the hospital.
All right, if you are queasy, this is your warning. You will see nasty bleeding and cuts. This is not from April 3rd. It's from a different incident around sometime before the elevator video. So February of 2022. It is not pretty. It's really gross.
Hospital. He said he was bleeding heavily, but promised to tell doctors it was a football incident. He begged Courtney to come see him, but she refused. These photos, later found on Christian's phone, show at least 2 bloody cuts on his face. One from his lip.
Now, it's worth noting, I'm no expert, but these are clean cuts. So use your brain and guess what could have caused a clean cut.
all the way down to his chin. Around the same time, surveillance video recorded this altercation in the building's elevator. Courtney is seen beating Christian repeatedly, pulling his hair as Christian tried his best to defend himself. A couple of weeks.
And I have to stop and give TMZ their kudos right there, because yesterday, if you watched the preview and the snippets, the teaser for this interview, they only showed, they're going to play the elevator footage again when they interview the parents. In the teaser, they released this clip of the mom justifying the elevator, saying that, oh, Christian's just standing there like a rock, and Clenney's trying to push him out of the elevator because she doesn't want him to follow her. She's trying to get away from him. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God, TMZ's letting her just characterize this, recharacterize it, completely recontextualize it. So I complained about TMZ in that regard. Shout out to them for playing the elevator video a separate time and saying it was Christian actually defending himself in this elevator clip. I'm not going to be critical of TMZ across the board and not be fair when I should be fair.
Later, Christian pressed record on his phone and slipped it in his pocket during an argument.
Courtney, I was on a bike ride and she passed me and I said, hi, you and Courtney are having a live chat. My bad, I forgot to tell you that. That doesn't make you an acting comedy. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I want you to get away from me.
While most of the evidence paints...
And now that recording, unless it's a similar fight, to me, that sounds like the same recording that happened on April 3rd. So, you know, she says that she wanted Christian Obumseli to be out of her life. She has her mom come stay with her for the month of March. She drops her mom off to the airport the morning of April 2nd. And then the stabbing happens on April 3rd. But on April 3rd, she went live on Instagram. And apparently Christian Obumseli went out to get sandwiches for them to eat from Subway. And it took him like 3 hours. He was on like a bike ride. Took 3 hours to come back with the sandwiches. And when he comes back, a fight ensues. And part of the argument was what we just heard. I believe. I could be wrong. But I believe that's from that same day.
Courtney as the violent one in the relationship, a neighbor who lived in a building across from Courtney's Miami condo says he saw Christian attacking Courtney with his own eyes.
It was about a week before the killing, about 3:30 a.m. I looked out the window from my living room. I saw Courtney posted up or planted up against the wall. I saw Christian swinging at her. When he turned around to run towards her again by the balcony door, he ran towards it and he noticed me standing in the glass window looking at everything that's going on. When he saw that, he shut down the curtains in the bedroom and I was not able to see what else happened. I felt really bad at the time because, you know, I'm like, this poor girl's getting beat up. I'm 100% sure that it was at that point in time and that instance that it was Christian being aggressive towards Courtney. I did not see her swing at him at all and I had a clear view.
Not long before their...
I think, if anything, in this entire thing, this is the one time I would say one. And I say that not because it's just a witness saying this. I say this because Arthur Kupp here, one, I think he comes off as a credible witness, right? I think he's just repeating what he saw. Two, and the prosecution could cross-examine him if he takes a stand or whatever and be like, well, are you sure it was even Christian? Are you sure it wasn't a guest that was visiting that night? And they could dismantle his whole testimony. But I do think he just comes off like he's just saying what he observed. I also think it's important that there's recency there with his testimony, that he's saying this is like a couple days before April 3rd, right? So just for those two factors alone, I will say that that is one moment where I will say there is one thing here that looks good for the defense. The problem is, if you look at any of the motion hearings or Frank Preto's statements, this seems to be the only witness that the defense keeps hinging on to, which makes it seem like it's the only example. So if the jury is going to be exposed to multiple witnesses talking about fights going both ways, and then other witnesses saying it was Courtney being aggressive to Christian, and then we have the audios, and then the videos where you can see and hear it for yourself. If you only come out and have one witness, even if the jury finds him credible, If you're the jury and you think there's one credible witness saying, yeah, one time maybe it looked like Christian was swinging at her, but then you have all the other witnesses and the video evidence and the audio saying Courtney was the aggressor. It was always trouble, but Courtney was the aggressor. Even if you think all of them are equally credible, I don't know, human nature would make you want to be like, all right, one time someone looks angry versus 50. I'm not sure how compelling he will be as a witness, even though I believe he'll probably come off as credible. What do you guys think?
Their fatal encounter. Christian texted Courtney, "Is love going to kill me?" Well, the answer was yes. And the way it happened was just horrific.
Hey, yo, you be dancing like Austin.
It's hard to believe these videos of Courtney and Christian dancing and singing in her apartment were shot the very same day she killed him. Just hours later, Christian would be dead. On the afternoon of April 3rd, 2022, Courtney plunged a 6-inch knife into Christian's chest. She called 911 herself.
We possibly have a dead body inside of the building. We possibly have a dead body.
My boyfriend is dying of a stab.
Ma'am, what is the address?
Please, God, please, come see my boyfriend.
On that call, you hear Christian crying out in the background, terrified for his life.
I gotta die, I can't see my arm.
3101.
I can't feel my arm.
My boyfriend is dying of a stab.
Ma'am.
Yes, he's bleeding from his shoulder. Please, God, please, God. Please, God, please, God.
When cops arrived 5 minutes later, they found Courtney on the floor, covered in blood, holding an unconscious but still alive Christian in her arms.
Get up! Get up right now! Get up right now! Why are you keeping her right? Get up right now! Get up right now! Baby, wake up, wake up.
We have an unresponded male. The apartment's full of blood.
I just want to make sure he's gonna be okay. Please, tell me what's going on. I'm looking you, I'm looking you in the eyes. Girl, please tell me if he's okay.
As Christian was rushed to the hospital, Courtney was cuffed and taken to a police interrogation room for questioning. While she waited for detectives, she prayed Christian would survive.
Please, God, don't take Christian completely.
So I do want to talk about, David C., and this is a valid point. He says, I don't buy he saw her getting beat up and not call the police. Now, that's valid. But at the same time, we do have other instances where other witnesses that say things about Courtney didn't call the police either. Even the neighbor in Austin, I believe he called the police once with a noise, or he called the building. He made some call to complain about the fighting. But he says he only did it once, and it seems like he was compelled to go do a local, I think it was News 10, with Austin. He went and did an interview with News 10 to say, hey, guys, I want you guys to know that if you see something, say something, because we called once, and then after that, we kind of just let it go, even though they kept fighting. We didn't call again, and maybe if we did, whatever ended up happening months later, could have all been prevented. But, so that one witness that did call expressed regret about not calling again. So at the same time, it could go both ways. And maybe we'll find out that he did, but there's been a few witnesses expressing regret for not calling and not saying something in this case specifically after they heard the news that Christian ended up getting killed. So it's a good point, but it's also, hindsight, man.
It's not going to work out with God. Talk to him again.
Detectives grilled Courtney.
And then if you saw that, because I was covering it, she says, I know it's not going to work out, but don't take him completely away from me. So that line is interesting. It's not going to work out. What does that mean? Why isn't it going to work out? What was happening just before we get here?
It's not going to work out with God. Talk to him again.
Detectives grilled Courtney for hours.
My apologies for being absolutely covered in blood.
In what would become the cornerstone of her case, Courtney said there was a fight, and she was just defending herself after Christian attacked her.
He was pressing me, And he ended up pinning me against the wall. And then, I mean, I said, like, choking me on the floor. It's just like, they were looking at my neck, and I was like, I mean, I'm not saying like, choking me, like, you know, whatever. But I mean, he had my, like, neck. Like, and this happened twice before, where I couldn't breathe, and I was on the floor. I grabbed my knife, and I said, don't come anywhere closer to me. I had absolutely no intention of using it. I'm on the phone with my mom, and he's coming at me like he's going to grab either the phone or, like, the knife or something. And so I was just like, I was like, don't come any closer. Coming at me, and I drew it.
After it happened, she asked me what to do, and I said, hang up and call 911.
Over at the hospital, Christian's injuries were not survivable. The knife went 3 inches into his chest, severing a major artery. He was pronounced dead the same day, just before 6 p.m.
We have to inform you that Christian did not make it. Okay. Unfortunately, the doctors did what they could. Christian is dead. Oh my God. This is not real, right? Okay. This is
Now, is this Frank Prito the whole time? Because his voice sounds the same. I didn't pay attention, but I noticed, like, as soon as it's announced that there's a death, it's like he just realized. Watch his body language.
The doctors did what they could. Christian is dead. Oh my God. This is not real, right? Okay. This is
It's gonna be fine.
Yeah, so J-Rock the Apostle points out that it wasn't immediate that she told her to call the police. So the prosecution did a good job with the timeline. I can see if I can pull it up. I downloaded it somewhere. But I'll keep playing this. We can talk about that at the end of the video. There were some minutes between Courtney's on the phone with her mom, then the phone hangs up, and she calls her mom back, and then she ends up calling 911 a couple minutes later. So there's a couple minutes of time that are passing before 911's even called. And then Jameer says, facts, wouldn't she have proof of injury or markings? Didn't she have anything? Now, this is going to be an interesting part of the trial because there are photos of her body, and she has some bruises. She has some bruises on her body. But the prosecution saying that based on some OnlyFans content that she posted in recent days before the killing, at least some of those injuries were already present. So the defense had posited, hey, these are defensive wounds, defensive injuries, defensive bruisings. And then the prosecution's like, no, we think those were already there. So that's going to be a huge point of the trial. Because, in my opinion, if you've got to establish the time period, right? Self-defense can change in a moment. And so if you have these pictures and you're the defense and you're trying to say, hey, these bruises were incurred in this moment and she had to act to save her life. And then you have the prosecution be like, no, they didn't get those in those moments. The defense can kind of rubber band back and be like, well, then it's from a pattern of her having to defend herself and being physically and violently abused by Christian Obumseli. So I think there's going to be some slingshotting back and forth because there are pictures of her being bruised up around this time, but they're going to argue about when they're even from. So did it happen in the moment? Is it a pattern? We'll have to see their strategy in trial.
Investigators worried Courtney might take her own life, so they sent her to a psych ward for 2 days, then released her as investigators combed through the evidence. Courtney's case got massive media attention, but not the kind she wanted.
I'll videotape her. Right now, yeah, you should go.
Yeah, you should go. Because you just killed your boyfriend. Yeah.
That was
you
her
did.
drinking with her dad.
Yeah. And yeah.
In a hotel lobby.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
From what we've personally experienced between the both of them, we believe that like Christian wouldn't put her in a position where she would need to stab him to protect herself.
4 months later, Courtney was arrested in Hawaii, where she was in rehab for PTSD and substance abuse. She was whisked away in a Black Hawk helicopter. Courtney's parents, who have never spoken publicly until now, tell us some of that evidence shows their daughter definitely has a nasty side.
Well, I mean, it got worse when she drank. When she was drinking, she could be a lot more temperamental.
But they stand firmly behind Courtney's claim. She killed Christian in self-defense. They insist the abuse was a two-way street.
I do think it may have been mutually physical, but you have to remember that he weighed, what, 230 pounds? 230 pounds, and she weighed 150. So, I mean...
I hate this argument. It may have been mutually abusive, but he weighed more. We know that bigger people can do more damage, stronger people can do more damage, but she was also athletic. And it doesn't mean just because someone's bigger. So what my point in the first thing I said is that she's fully capable of doing the same damage as someone would expect a 200-pound male to do because she did weightlifting. She trained with Sean Roden. Like, hello. And there's a rumor that she broke his jaw too. Like, hello. But secondly, just because someone is more strong physically doesn't mean they're the aggressor. Oh my God.
He was a rock. He was like a boulder.
He's a muscular guy. He played college football, but in no way, shape, or form did he have an intimidating stature or, a threatening presence. Everyone who comes in contact with Toby would describe him as very jovial. He likes to joke around a lot, but mostly is that he's calm.
Did she ever tell you she feared he would kill her?
Yes, he almost did. A couple weeks before that. She said that she was passing out. He was strangling her. And she said that it was going through her mind, oh my gosh, my mom's gonna have to plan my funeral.
But what about that elevator video showing Courtney?
Now, this is the mom's characterization. So if you jumped in late and you didn't see when TMZ first talked about this elevator video, Courtney's mom is going to contextualize this in a very interesting way. But TMZ does show the same footage earlier, and they characterize it as self-defense for Christian Obumseli.
Courtney wailing on Christian. The Clenneys say it doesn't tell the real story.
What is not obvious, that elevator went directly to her landing to go into her apartment. And so you can see how desperate she is for him not to follow her. She's trying to push him off the elevator because she doesn't want him to come in. And you can see he's like a rock, her trying to push him out, and she can't push him out. And I think the people who've shown that video do tend to cut out the part where he has her in a headlock.
Why does it matter if someone's put in a headlock after they were being hit? And then I want to point out, so everyone that watched the preview yesterday pointed out that part right there. Watch her hand with the door of the elevator. Sorry, it's so hard to scrub the timeline on this.
To go into her apartment. And so you can see how desperate
you guys all pointed that out. She's holding the door open while the mom's saying, desperate not to follow.
She doesn't want him to come in. And you can see he's like a rock, her trying to push him out. And she can't push him out. And I think the people who've shown that video
do you think her motion's pushing? Is it just me? But I don't think her motion's even a push motion. She just looks like she's trying to put hands and connect. Like, it happens to be kind of near the doorway, but when you're in an elevator, you can't really be far away from the door. You're in a little box. So yeah, proximity, she's contacting him while he happens to be close to a door, but that's just circumstantial. It's not because she's making an actual pushing to push him through the doorway, in my opinion.
Tend to cut out the part where he has her in a headlock. He was swatting her off like a fly. He wasn't being harmed.
Get out, for real. I know I see you.
In fact, the Clenneys say Courtney repeatedly tried to break up with Christian. A few days before the killing, Deborah even flew to Miami to help her.
Is like, I will come out and I will help you kick him out. And I told her, even if you don't break up with him, just make him move out so that you can have peace in your own home.
But after Deborah left, just 2 days before the killing, Christian was loitering in Courtney's lobby, so security called the cops.
We get down here to the lobby area. Her boyfriend comes charging towards her, and we actually try to get in the middle of it.
Mom came out to like help me break up with him, and I just couldn't do it. I want a restraining order against Christian and Joe. Because no, I'm serious. Like, I have not always been a victim, but like right now, I'm a freaking victim in this situation. I'm scared to go to the just want my dog.
On that fateful afternoon, Deborah Clenney says she heard sounds of chaos when she was on the phone with Courtney, the very moment it all went down.
So let's look at the timeline here, because I have it pulled up now, and we're about to hear the mom talk about it in a little bit more detail. So, the prosecutors, because this is directly, I think this is just a demonstrative, the Miami-Dade State Attorney Office came up with this timeline. It was part of their affidavit. So at 4:01 p.m., Clenney called Christian, then she goes live on Instagram. At 4:33 p.m., so just about 30 minutes later, she called him again, shortly after posting the video. 4:33, Christian walks into the apartment. This is where I do believe we get some of that audio recording, but I'm not sure if it happened before or after. But that audio recording where she's like, you talk to her, and then he's like, I walked by and I saw you guys were on live together. But 4:43, Clenney calls her mom. The call lasts until 4:49, so about 6 minutes. 4:49, Clenney makes a second call to her mom. So they get off the phone and Clenney calls right back because the call ends at 4:49 and then a new call is made at 4:49, same minute. So she hangs up and calls right back. They spoke until 4:56, so a little over 7 minutes. Then at 4:57, Clenney calls 911. So there's two calls here with the mom that end and resume back to back. And then Courtney finally calls 911. And then it takes the police about, it said 5 minutes earlier in the video, but from this timeline, it looks about 7 minutes and change. The police are walking through the elevator. So there's our timeline there as context to what we're about to hear the mom describe.
Did she say on that phone call that he was attacking her, or did you hear that?
I just heard screaming. I heard screaming. If he had heard her tell me that, and even if this hadn't happened, it would be her funeral we were talking about. It would have been the other way around, for sure. I don't remember exactly how she said it, but she I knew that he had been injured.
I was on the phone with my mom. It's right in there, like it's covered in blood, because I was on the phone with her while I was trying to get.
I didn't know it was serious at all. I just knew that if he was injured at all, she needed to call 911, and she did.
As for prosecutors, they've held their cards close to the vest. But in late 2022, they previewed what their case will look like.
We've put forward the evidence that contradicts her claims of self-defense, that shows her to be a liar, and to show that she's acting consistent with her nature in this relationship.
And prosecutors made it clear they will vigorously challenge Courtney's claim she didn't stab Christian with a knife.
And we are finally going to get to see the pig carcass demonstrative. One little clip of it, guys. I think it's coming up right here. But there's been this huge hullabaloo about the defense wants to call an expert witness. It's a knife thrower, and they want to use this demonstrative to show that it's possible to throw a knife and have it penetrate flesh 3 inches deep.
She threw it at him.
I for dang sure did not stab him. That would be insane. I mean, I didn't even think that this would touch him. Anyway, comes at me, and then I just flung him. And I was kind of just trying to fling it past him.
The medical examiner testified at the bond hearing the wound was too deep to come from a tossed knife, unless
the person who supposedly did this is an expert knife thrower, and the knife is the type of knife that you can throw. I guess that could have happened.
Did you receive any information that the defendant was a knife thrower?
No.
Courtney's attorney strongly disagreed.
Now, before we watch this little teeny tiny clip, the state is not charging Courtney Clenney with intent or premeditation. It's just murder in the second degree with a weapon. So to me, it doesn't really matter that she didn't intend to kill him by throwing this. The defense is otherwise. They're going to have to make the argument that, look at the way she threw this, and the way she threw it is more consistent with self-defense, and that's why we think what she did was justified. It's not to distinguish the difference between intent and recklessness, because that's not even being charged. It's just to the mechanism of throwing it. The defense thinks that that will make a stronger case for a self-defense justification, for an affirmative defense. But let's get this little teeny clip. And you see how TMZ is like showing that, oh, it could be possible. This medical examiner says maybe.
Attorney strongly disagrees.
We have shown through our own testing that the knife can be thrown and penetrate into flesh. And I think in the interview she says, I flung it. And when you're from Texas, if you fling something, that means you threw it hard.
The Clenneys say their daughter is...
Is anyone here from Texas? Do you guys use fling in a different way than most people use fling? Because if I fling something, it's like a bit more of a toss, but not a pitch. But maybe it's really a Texas thing. Second question is, if you were the jury and you watch this, I'm sure they'll play it more than once if they're able to get this pig knife throwing demonstrative in. Would that not make you kind of imagine Christian getting stabbed? Do you think that's actually a helpful visual either way? I don't think there's enough reason if she's not being charged with intent. I don't think, oh, she threw it instead of actually plunging him from a short distance right against him. I don't think there's that much of a difference. Either of those you could make a self-defense justification. I don't think throwing from a distance is a better argument for self-defense than being right up against someone. In fact, if you're right up against me, that could show, I think it'd be more reasonable that I use self-defense. The problem is Courtney said this in her interrogation, so now they have to go with it. But either way, I don't think that it'll change the way the jury looks at it. You're just going to now put a demonstrative in front of them where they're going to hear the sound of a knife entering flesh. And I don't think that that's going to be helpful, especially if you play it more than once. Because people are sensory inclined. They're going to hear it. They're going to see it. It's going to be kind of like a type thing. So what do you think of the defense's strategy on trying to get this knife throwing demonstrative in? Because those are my thoughts.
Not a murderer. They believe she was forced into an impossible split-second decision that day. His life or hers.
I'm serious.
So right now, yeah, don't worry. They're helping him. So just sit down. Don't move, okay?
Oh my God.
She was scared and she did what she had to do. Unfortunately, it ended in his death, but it would have ended in her death.
When was he going to kill her? It was only a matter of time.
That sounds like a famous line, like a cliche for a self-defense case. It was only a matter of time.
I will tell you this one thing. The strongest person I know is Courtney Clenney. I didn't realize that, but she's been tested. And if she can get through this, she can get through anything. People say, I'm sorry you're going through this. I can't imagine, and you can't imagine.
No.
Every day you get up and you think,
you want your little girl back.
You wake up and it's a normal day and you say, oh crap, it's not a normal day, it's a Groundhog Day every day. Yeah. Every day, because she's our little girl, she should be at home.
Christian Obumseli's killing was the last straw in a relationship laced with anger, brutality, and unrelenting violence. Now add...
If you heard me criticize that yesterday, last straw. What does it mean when you hear the phrase last straw? Because that's the phrase that TMZ, the narrator, is using here.
Race to the mix. Prosecutors want to introduce evidence of Courtney calling Christian a racial epithet.
My bad, I forgot to tell you that. That doesn't make you an acting call me. Yes, thank you. Come from thank you.
She told me why. She called him that because she wanted him to leave, and she said no self-respecting black man would stick around after being called that name. So she thought that was a way to get him to leave.
Obviously didn't work.
She liked him partly because he was black. I believe if Courtney were black or if Christian were white, we would not be here.
Christian's family, who, by the way, declined our request for an interview, says there's a lot of blame to go around. They filed a civil lawsuit against Courtney, the condo complex, and its security firm. They claim security guards waited outside the unit for 12 long minutes after hearing there was a fight and did nothing while Christian was suffering and dying.
The family now waits to make sure that justice is done, and we're confident that she will, and those responsible will be held both civilly and criminal so that justice can truly be served.
When you bring your baby home, all you want for them is to be happy and healthy. And, you know, it affects you when your baby is being wrongly labeled. There's not anything I could say about anybody else that equals the foul lie of her being a murderer.
Now here's the twist. In late January, just a few weeks after I interviewed Kim and Deborah, they were arrested for allegedly gaining unauthorized access to Christian's computer. And that's a felony. According to the prosecutors, at least, Courtney knew something about that computer and wanted her family, her mom and dad, to gain access to it. Prosecutors did see, what, 4,200.
Now, this clip that they're using is a bit of misreporting, and they talked about this at the motion hearing. So this was an interview that was on one of their, like, 30-minute news segments. And they're suggesting like possible tampering and making it seem like the prosecution was monitoring correspondence. But really, when you get the arrest warrants, you find out that the charge is just for unauthorized access, and that these 4,300 and something messages are a group chat between, you know, some of the attorneys at the law firm and then the Clenney parents. They weren't monitoring them live. They ended up getting access to them, I believe, through Deborah Clenney, the mom's iCloud access, because Apple turned over in response to a subpoena some information on the iCloud, and that's where they saw these messages and they saw this mention of this laptop. So TMZ did some misreporting here, and the prosecution and the defense both at the motion hearing concede that it was misreporting.
4,200 text messages. So they were monitoring all of these discussions.
The prosecution plays dirty, and I think they would use anything we say to each other. I mean, they tried to act like I was manipulating her by texting her to say, even though it was self-defense.
The jury will ultimately.
So that's something that the mom, you notice how the mom was pretty vague all these other times she's speaking in this interview about what she heard over the phone, what they talked about. But right there, she's like, oh, the prosecution, they're listening to every word we say, blah, 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 blah. And they even tried to make an issue out of me advising my daughter, you know, hey, say it was self-defense. The problem with that, and the bond hearings are pretty long back in November 2022, but there was pretty extensive questioning for the detective that investigated the case about phone records. And a lot of those phone records involved correspondence between Deborah Clenney, mom, and Courtney Clenney. And in initial questioning with the I don't know if it was the police or the prosecution, Deborah Clenney kind of left out these text messages where she's advising her daughter, like, get a lawyer, say it was self-defense, blah, 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 blah. So the issue isn't just that she was advising her daughter to say it was self-defense. The issue is that she acted like that conversation didn't exist until it was pointed out to her. Hey, did you not send these messages? And then it's interesting that she explicitly goes out of her way to mention that in this when she's vague otherwise in the rest of the interview. So, but that's that for the TMZ interview there. Obviously, that's not the full thing. Those are clips that I thought were specifically relevant as far as new evidence or framing of public opinion or statements from the parents or the attorneys. There's a lot of other culture commentary mixed in from Taylor Lorenz and how Courtney Clenney wanted to be Kim Kardashian. Things that I don't think are germane to the trial or how the public is perceiving the trial. But let's see what you guys are thinking about over here. And then let's go back. This is a lot of the commentary on the elevator. So you guys are immediately pointing out that she's holding that elevator door. And then David says she's done. People have been convicted on less. I agree that it's going to be... It's clear because the jury doesn't have to debate intent. There's no lesser charges. It's the second-degree murder with a weapon, with a deadly weapon. That's it. They don't have to have these confusing jury instructions, and if not this, then that. It's a simple pathway for the jury to know what they're supposed to be there to decide on. And then talking about connecting the hands. So she's just beating on him. She's not pushing. And I agree. It just looks like she's trying to slap, not shove. Because when someone shoves, their own body will necessarily move back. Because you're applying like force and trying to gain momentum behind what you're doing. When you're trying to hit, you're leaning into it. It's different. And she's doing this in that elevator video. We can go back and play that again. But
Courtney's lips video recorded this altercation in the building's elevator. Courtney is seen beating Christian repeatedly, pulling his hair as Christian tried his best.
She's leaning into it each
himself.
time. With a closed fist many of the times. And again, this clip right here is TMZ playing it, not the mom's commentary. It's TMZ characterizing it, I think, correctly as Christian being the one getting beat on. And then Ghost says the door of the elevator is so telling. Who holds the door of an elevator if she wants him out of it? She was in a fit. I agree. She just wanted to throw hands. She seems like she is just aggressive and drugs make her short-tempered. She seems like the type of person who just goes with their first emotional thought from what presented. I don't know her though, right? Yeah, we don't know her. But at the same time, you see in the body cam video where she's sitting on the floor in the hallway, and I think the first responder, the police officer's like, sit there, stay there, don't move or whatever. She's like, why are you yelling at me? And it's like, I don't even know if in that moment I would comprehend I was even being yelled at. I might just be yelling things out loud because I'm in a panic and I'm in shock. Or I might just be sitting there crying. But I don't think I'd be wondering why someone's yelling at me. I don't even think I'd have a chance to take in that I was being yelled at. That's just me. And yeah, this is a great point. So Blue Queen TV says, also remember, they were filming videos the day she killed him, but she says he's stalking her. So on that April 1st into April 2nd, where do we have that video? Yeah, so they're hanging out together on April 3rd. Where do we get some of that surveillance? So here, this starts right after midnight on the 2nd. So it's April 1st going into the 2nd. Obviously, the stabbing takes place on the 3rd. But in the very, very early hours of April 2nd, you have the building staff standing here saying that they see Christian lunge at Courtney in the lobby. And Courtney's like, I haven't always been the victim, but right now I am, and I want a restraining order.
Towards her, and we actually try to get in the middle of it.
To like help me break up with him, and I just couldn't do it. I want a restraining order against Christian because no, I'm serious. Like, I have not always been the victim, but like right now, I'm freaking victim in this situation. I'm scared to go down and just walk my dog.
So she's scared to go walk her dogs. It's chopped up there, but she does mention like he's sleeping inside the couch, hiding inside the couch in that walkway entry area outside of their elevator before you actually can get into the penthouse unit. But then on April 3rd, they're in content together. They're hanging out. So, like this dancing video. Where was this dancing video? The one like, oh, you're dancing like Austin. They're like, oh, you know, having a good old time. So TMZ says that this video is from that day. And I wasn't aware of this. I know they did content, but
it's hard to believe these videos of Courtney and Christian dancing and singing in her apartment were shot the very same day she killed.
So I was aware of like some of this, but it's very telling. And just imagine if you're the jury and you're hearing, you first get told, oh, she wanted a restraining order. This was just hours, a day, less than 24 hours before the day that it happens, right? February or April 2nd. And mom was staying with her for a month. But then you see on April 3rd, she's just over here dunking, like.
It's hard to believe these videos of Courtney and Christian dancing and singing in her apartment were shot the very same day she killed him.
Like, hello?
Just hours later, Christian would be dead.
So then you're the jury and you're tasked to, oh, she was complaining about being stalked and being afraid for her life, but then that happens and then this happens. So how did we get from here to here to here? And then, yeah, so Ghost points out that language. So Clenney says he tried to charge her. Obumseli tried to charge her in the moment. I'd like to say what charge means to them. I know that sometimes people exaggerate things, like in the Jonathan Majors case. I saw the intent on his face. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of, and we're already seeing it from the defense in the motion hearings, which, you know, those are televised, right? So to me, it's my guess that the defense attorney, Frank Prito, knowing that these motion hearings are going to be watched and talked about by people like us that are watching, he's acting out. He's pantomiming a lot of stuff in these motion hearings and saying certain words very strongly. Not, in my opinion, for the judge, because the judge is looking at him at some moments like, okay. He's saying it, I think, for us, but personally, I'm watching it and I think he's over-exaggerating and it makes his arguments look less credible. But we're going to see a lot of this with certain language, certain body motions meant to convey a visual or convey a certain meaning or connotation, and the jury is going to have to interpret it how they will. And then Samurai, I agree. The mother is making blanket statements that will hurt her daughter in trial. And then Samurai, you mentioned earlier further up in the chat about being in the same gym training when Sean Roden had the broken jaw. You know, that's all speculation, right? Sean Roden had a broken jaw, but he didn't talk about it or how it was caused in the interviews during that time. And someone he was close with came out and said that it was Courtney Clenney that ended up clocking him in the jaw and breaking it. And it was on a video on YouTube. The video is no longer there, but it's preserved in some of these fitness blogs and in a Rolling Stone article that, hey, there's been people that were close to Sean Roden that said that it was Clenney that did it. So, and one of the main friends is no longer alive either, so he can't just come out and say, yeah. And they should have camera in the lobby. So I don't think they have camera in that part where they get out of the elevator on the penthouse floor. But as far as the main lobby of the building, yeah. Something happened that was definitely a bad look for Courtney Clenney because there's a lot of twos here. And then Eliza, welcome. I think you entered late. And so Samurai says she's strong enough to throw a knife. She's strong enough to hurt him when she throws her punches. Let me change the screen. What's a neutral picture? Let's just have, what's his name? Harry Levin? I'll get him up on the screen. Yeah, that's fine. That way we're not looking at anything weird the whole time. And then talking about fling. So fling doesn't mean throw it as hard as you can, as Frank Prito says, anywhere. And that's also a good point. In Texas, they never use a knife. It's always a gun. So David, yes. Christian Obumseli died from one stab wound. There's only one stab wound that night present on Obumseli. And the medical examiner, I believe, says it was his subaortal artery that was severed. So he just kept bleeding, lost too much blood. So Biko, this is again speaking of the knife throwing claim. So unless she herself is throwing it from the distance she claimed, it doesn't help. Now we're getting into this conversation of if they're not arguing reckless versus intent, right? If the defense doesn't need to prove intent, they're just arguing a self-defense justification. Throwing the knife from the distance versus stabbing someone up close kind of has it's a different situation, right? And so the parents they're acting on reckless assumptions. The dad watches 48-hour snippets. And then Jake. So this is kind of where I fall. I agree with this. Jake says if she threw the knife, then he wasn't an immediate threat to her. And you can argue there's gray area, you think someone's charging at you, but that becomes more of a gray area, right? She cannot be sure he was coming to hurt her if he's this far away. Whereas you know, for example, in the Aspen video, you see mostly she's hitting up on him, but there is one moment where he's like, I'm done with you, I'm leaving, I never want to see you again. And it's the only time he really is the one kind of in control in that video. It's a brief second, but he's like holding the sides of her arms and like kind of walking her backwards. And, you know, you could argue that in that moment, one could argue, not saying the jury would believe it, that Christian became the aggressor for that split second of that video. Even though he's not swinging, he's just holding the side of her arms. But there's a more tense visual when you imagine something happening close up than when someone's across the room. So if you're arguing for self-defense, and it sucked because Courtney Clenney said it in her interrogation, I didn't stab him, that would be insane, or however she worded it. I threw the knife, and God, I didn't expect that it would even hit him. So you threw the knife as a warning to stay away? I honestly think she has to testify, and that's obviously dangerous, but if she doesn't testify, I think there's absolutely no chance. What do you guys think? I don't know if she'll be great on the stand. I don't know if she'll be a sympathetic witness, but... And then, so J-Rock says, if we're talking about the last straw, it means you're at your wit's end. And yeah, I didn't really like the way that they said that. You know, this relationship, it was the last straw, as if what Courtney Clenney did was the last straw in response to things that Christian was doing. I didn't like that implication. And yeah, so then we get into, you guys are now commenting, we're getting to the comments about the mom. I know why she used that word. And where is that clip? Because she's like happy to tell it. She's like ready to tell that part. Let's go back to that. Maybe it was further back. Is it here? Maybe this isn't it. Let me see if this is it.
Stick around.
Yeah. Okay.
Courtney calling Christian a racial epithet.
My bad, I forgot to tell you that. That doesn't make you to act and call me a Yes, thank you. Coming from thank you.
She told me why she called him that.
Like she to me seems like she's so ready to put this information out there. And since that last line from Courtney.
Yes, thank you. Coming from thank you.
She told.
Are they missing a bit? Did I not go back? Maybe they play more? There's a part of that quote, that secret recording, where she's like, I want you to go away.
If you were to act and call me Yes, thank you. Coming from thank you.
She told me why.
Sorry to keep replaying that.
Because she wanted him to leave, and she said no self-respecting black man would stick around after being called that name. So she thought that was a way to get him to leave.
Obviously didn't work.
She liked him partly because he was black. I believe if Courtney were black or if Christian were white, we would not be here.
So I don't see it, but I swear in the preview teaser, there's a line right at the end of that clip of the recording where she calls him the N-word and she's like, I want you to go away. And I remember reading it, like seeing it back to back in the captions and thinking, to me, it seems like Courtney found out about the secret recording after the fact, and then her and her mom came up with an explanation to, you know, reverse engineer, oh, how can we fit this into a theory of mutual abuse or that he was abusive, right? Because she saw herself say, I want you to go away, which we see she seems to say in like every fight. She's like, go away, leave me alone, I hate you. Why were you talking to another girl? So it's not that compelling that she's even saying, I want you to go away, because she always says it. But in that context, it just seems like, oh, the secret recording, I'm telling him I want him to go away. So we'll just say that that's why I'm saying abusive language and using this word that's really not going to make me look good in front of a jury. But I don't see it here. I swear I saw it in the preview. But yeah, so Jameer says they look like they were prepping for that interview. And again, this interview with the parents was before the laptop thing. The warrants were issued for the laptop. And then Samurai see how they debunk the whole argumentation of why she uses the N-word and the justification of the language she was using while they were in a fight. Yup. The father's blank response to the N-word was crazy. And except for when he goes, and it didn't work. Where were we? Like he's sitting there all like stoic looking down, and then he goes, it didn't work.
Would stick around after being called that name. So she thought that was a way to get him to leave.
Obviously didn't work.
She liked him.
Yeah, so she's used the N-word before. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if she's like, when she like does lip syncing content, if she's just like singing the lyrics or whatever. But I think also in the context of being an argument, she's like screeching in all these recordings, right? It's not just like, even when she's not using carefully curated word choices, she's like screeching every time we have an audio recording of her. So there's no denying that when she's launching certain types of words, that they're coming from a place of intending to hurt somebody, to offend somebody. Because the tone behind it is just, you can't tell me that the tone in any of these recordings is calm and just purely communicative. Okay, Carly. So Carly says, I've lived in Austin, Texas for 8 years and haven't heard the word flung used like that. Yeah, it's just like with his Miami, his like Florida college coffee mug sitting there. He's like, oh, you know, the Texans always use this word fling to mean throw as hard as you can. Like, where are you even getting this idea from, Frank Prieto? And then, hey, Rosemary. So Rosemary says, isn't it self-defense? She's coming at him with a knife and having actively been violent with him before. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not going to go back to the pictures where his face is all cut up, but those are clean cuts. He had to get stitches because he even said he was scared. He's like, can you come to the hospital with me? I'm scared. And she's like, haha, no, you're not scared. But like, to me, those clean cuts, she's used a knife close range on him before. So not only has she been violent with him before, but she's been violent at close range with a knife. Compare that to April 3rd. And then Deborah is trying to put this big, scary black man narrative on this. Yep. So I totally agree. They do that. Oh, he's 230 pounds. And then the video of her screaming is what's going to sell this, especially the amount. Yeah, I agree. Without that, they would have played all the physical differences and racial undertones. Carly, this is a good question. I don't know why her defense wasn't insanity. She's taking an affirmative defense, so, you know, when you're saying, yes, I did something, but I did it in self-defense, that's affirmative. We're not even going to debate how this occurred. We're conceding that. Same thing. If you wanted to do the insanity defense, you would affirm, hey, this happened, but I'm not culpable. I didn't have the mens rea. I was in another state. And an insanity defense doesn't always have to be some type of chronic, lifelong, mental health condition that qualifies. It could be something that's just acute in that moment. And they didn't go that route. And I'm not exactly sure why. They did have some legs from the prosecution to stand on, because the police put her in a psych ward for 2 days after the stabbing. She did seek treatment for substance abuse and PTSD. I'm not sure why they didn't go this route. It could be the client's call. It could be Courtney Clenney's call. It could be she thought maybe she'd be able to get out of this and didn't want to claim insanity because she wanted to come back out and go back to her OnlyFans career, go back to, being able to work with other collaborators, content creators. And maybe she thought taking that type of defense would kill her future opportunities. But now we're 2 years into, April would be 2 years. She's been in holding ever since August 2022. OnlyFans has suspended her account. They say that they have no plans of bringing it back. Maybe she didn't know that at the time of talking with her counsel and saying, hey, go ahead, say it's an insanity defense. I'm not sure, but I think she would have a better chance. I don't think she would not get convicted, but I think her sentencing would be different. But she probably doesn't want either sentence, so she's going for the bigger risk with the bigger reward of possibly a full acquittal without her ever having to say, hey, I'm pleading insanity. And then when I get out, hey, content creators, you want to come hang out with me in Aspen? You know, you don't want to do that if you think your career is your priority in the moment you make this decision. So Jake says, that's an excellent point. Apparently only Courtney's allowed the self-defense benefit of doubt. Well, and that's technically, so self-defense benefit of the doubt, at least, you know, technically any defendant they have a right, constitutional right to a fair trial, and the prosecution bears the burden of proof to prove defense beyond a reasonable doubt. Or to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. With self-defense is preponderance of evidence. They tried to make it seem like he was stalking her. He technically lived there still, right? So they do say in this interview, because this has been very confusing, because you have the estate trying to make it seem like a common shared household, and they don't get into specifics of whose name's on the lease. But then you have, you know, other things from the defense saying that it was Courtney's name on the lease. You have her on the video saying, is my name on the apartment? I pay for everything. But just because you're paying for everything doesn't mean someone doesn't have the right to be there. And then the police also ask her in that April 2nd after midnight video, well, does he have personal belongings there? And she's like, so much stuff. He has so much stuff. So I don't really think, I think it'd be a slippery slope for someone to argue that it was her right to be there and not his, and that should play into what happened in that exact moment. It would be different if he showed up, went up the elevator, and that fight broke out, and he hadn't been there for days because he was told not to be there. But once you introduce those videos that they're taking together from inside the apartment, all casual, honestly, his hair, he's got his shirt off. He doesn't look like he's there for a couple seconds and getting up out of there. He looks comfortable. And she's dancing, smiling, laughing. When you put that right in the middle of her asking for a restraining order and the stabbing happening, to me, it doesn't matter if he's on the lease or not. It's irrelevant to what transpires. Also, it takes a lot of power to push a knife 3 inches into someone's chest. There is a breastplate there. I think people forget that. Yeah, because don't forget, guys, it was like his chest area. It wasn't, even in that 911 call, it says like, oh, he's bleeding from the shoulder. I think that's just where she's seeing blood pour from, or can't think of the words in the moment. She's just telling the 911 dispatcher, you know, he's bleeding from the shoulder. But it's not really, like, your arm can be kind of more fleshy, right? But it's really like here that he was penetrated. And Jake, I increasingly understand when people hate Taylor Lorenz. She's about to turn this case into a culture war battle. Yeah, so I skipped a lot of her commentary. One, because I honestly don't think it was that relevant to anything to do with the trial and the evidence and public transparency in this case. 2, it was a lot of the same thing over and over. It was, everybody wants to be Kim K. Everybody knows that OnlyFans is the way to rise to celebrity status now. And it was just a lot of, like, the way she was wording everything wasn't speaking from, like, an academic or expert opinion, but just as if she was the messenger for consensus, social consensus. And I don't even think she was accurate. I think we're all well aware that you can make a lot of money if you are the right person. Like, if you're like Carmen Electra on OnlyFans. But something she didn't seem to grasp onto is, I don't know, like, don't 95% of people on OnlyFans make, like, pennies each month? It's not just some, you know, nice, gentle bell curve. It's mostly outliers that are making a lot of money on OnlyFans. So I think she's acting like she's relaying common knowledge or social consensus. And it's not even, I think most of us would disagree with the general way that she characterizes things. So I just don't really enjoy Taylor Lorenz's takes. I didn't think she added much to this interview at all. You can watch the thing in full to see if you think differently. But yeah, a lot of these culture reporters look to turn anything into some type of culture war where, oh, YouTube commentators and people on X are saying this. This is how they're reacting to things. But they don't really give any analysis. They just have an opinion in response to what people are saying. So I don't get it. kudos to them for being able to make a career out of it, I guess. And then Carly says, and the parents saying she was trying to get him out of the elevator is confusing because it looks like they were coming from their apartment. Yep, so they're entering the elevator from the, like, lobby-ish area, the private lobby-ish area on her penthouse floor that's only private to them. So they're entering the elevator from there, and they're about to go down to the lobby. Yeah, why would she shove him back into their home? Like, stay here! Don't ever leave my home! And then, yeah, so going back to this idea of, like, he lives there, they're implying that your partner is entitled to prevent your access to your home and belongings. Yeah, I think it's, like, a stupid thing if they get wrapped up in that in trial because, I mean, even if we haven't experienced it directly, I think all of us are well aware of someone we know personally that had to deal with a breakup where they were, you know, sharing a house or sharing an apartment, right? We all know someone that was in a serious relationship where the living arrangement was together, no matter whose name was on the paperwork. But it had to be reconciled with a breakup, right? A lot of us probably have firsthand experience with something like that. But if we don't, we certainly have a friend that we know, or friends. We could have been friends with both sides of a couple that had to go through this. I don't think the jury is going to sit there and care if from April 1st to April 3rd, Christian had things in that apartment. Like, it's just not, I think it'd be stupid for the defense to harp on that, oh, it's her apartment, she was paying for it. Unless they have proof that he was extorting her or blackmailing her or something. And then Rosemary, she's so high on drugs. However, if she's charged for this and prosecuted and found guilty, it would be a miracle. I do think the state, again, charged appropriately with just going with second-degree murder. They don't need to prove the intent. The defense has to prove through preponderance of evidence that she was justified in self-defense. So it's an affirmative defense. Yes, she's responsible for his death, but it was justified because she did so in self-defense. I think they charged right. I do. The jury will have a simple time. They don't need to debate all the nuances of penal law and all that. But you never know, right? A jury is a jury. And then Samurai said, talking about the Sean Roden thing, it was a rumors through all the gyms because he couldn't train for the Mr. Olympia that year. Okay, so rumors throughout the gym. Okay. That's actually, obviously, again, still speculation to Samurai is just providing context here that, was it Globe Gym? Gold's Gym? I'm not good at names. But where Sean Roden worked and trained, it was kind of fluttering around this idea that Courtney Clenney was responsible for breaking his jaw. The theory is they were having an affair. They were dating. She thought she was his girlfriend, but he was married the whole time. And so she finds out and gets mad and clocks him. And then he has a broken jaw. And he doesn't explain in any interviews how exactly his jaw got broken. And that's true, right? She had a broken hand the same time he had a broken jaw. And there was another rumor from an ex. Let me see if I can just pull it up. If you give me 2 seconds here. I have the Rolling Stone article. And you know how I feel about Rolling Stone reporting. But they do mention an ex that's unnamed saying she was abusive to him as well. Let me pull up that quote. Clenney. All right, so let's go over to this tab. It might be paywalled, so let's see. This is a depressing topic to start the day off on, isn't it? All right, let's see. All right, so let's start here. So they're going to talk about a mutual friend from Austin. I believe she's one of the ones in that video. I think it's Ashley, but I could be wrong. So the friend from, and actually let's read this. So Frank Petro is saying this type of stuff that she says, the way she acts, it's her persona, it's entertainment, it's the theater of it. The friend from Austin, who asked to remain anonymous to avoid online backlash, says she believes the couple started talking during the second half of 2020 when they were living in the city of Austin. The friend had met Obumseli earlier that summer through a mutual friend and recalls he fit in right away with her social circle. We all hit it off with him. He had been like a best friend ever since. She describes him as someone who was always cracking jokes, always the life of the party, with a bright personality. She also says he had a strong religious faith, and they'd share deep conversations. She became friends with Clenney shortly after meeting Obumseli. Although she knew of her before from the nightlife scene in Austin, Clenney was known for her success on OnlyFans. So remember, she was like stripping in Austin too. The friend felt some trepidation seeing Obumseli getting serious quickly with Clenney. Clenney was also known for partying and had 2 DWI arrests in the state, the second of which happened that September, and the case for which is still pending. For the first one in 2015, when she was just 18, she had her first DWI and was sentenced to 3 days in jail. The arrest warrant from the 2020 incident shows she crashed a white Mercedes-Benz into another car a few miles from the riverfront, so she already had some money here at this point, from the riverfront apartment complex where she lived at the time. Cops found a partially empty 750-milliliter bottle of Espolòn tequila in the front seat. On a roadside breath test, she registered a blood alcohol content of 0.3, more than 3 times the legal limit. I think there's a mugshot, actually. I think I have it. And then I think this was her mugshot from that day. So you can see there's like mascara. Like she was crying when this happened. It's obviously like COVID times too because of the mask. So Prado says, I'm not trying to hide anything. I don't know. I have not talked to her about those matters and it's not really relevant, but there are signs of substance abuse. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. The reality is we did see a lot of domestic violence and it was on her end. So then Rolling Stone gets into the other DV. Beyond signs of substance use issues, the friend claims Clenney attempted to stab an ex-boyfriend who is another close friend of hers. So, sounds like a different person. Attempted to stab an ex-boyfriend, although she refuses to identify him. Clenney's exes that the Rolling Stone was able to independently identify did not respond to requests for comment. However, Hanfield, the attorney working with, that's the estate, he's working with the Obumseli estate, says he connected with an ex-boyfriend who alleges Clenney tried to stab him on 2 occasions. Hanfield says the ex has spoken to an investigator at Hanfield's firm and that he's passed this information on to prosecutors in Miami. So this guy did not want to talk to Rolling Stone, but he talked to the law firm representing the estate and says that he also passed the same statement on to the prosecutors in Miami. So interesting, and I totally understand why someone doesn't want to talk to Rolling Stone. Where he hopes Clenney will soon be arrested. Prado says he believes, this is written a while ago, Prado says he believes the allegation that she tried to stab an ex is absolutely false. One of the stranger stories circulating about Clenney's alleged history of violence is that Clenney may have broken the jaw of professional bodybuilder Sean Roden. On April 12th, bodybuilder Nick Trigili, so this video is taken down. I've checked multiple times, it's no longer on YouTube. So it has 45,000 subscribers, so maybe someone remembers seeing it, where he claimed Clenney and Roden had been romantically involved while Clenney was training at Gold's Gym in Venice. Trigili further claimed that in 2017, when Clenney learned Roden was married at the time, she hit him with an uppercut that shattered his jaw. Trigili added, this is all allegedly, right? Hearsay, but I have a lot of people confirming this. So Roden's no longer alive. Trigili told Rolling Stone by email that he'd heard this claim directly from Roden, whom he considered a close friend, as well as from 2 of Roden's ex-wives. While Trigili initially agreed to an interview, he subsequently stopped responding to communications. So he kind of talked to Rolling Stone a little bit, then stopped, and now this video that he uploaded to his own channel is no longer posted. But yeah. So Roden has some pictures that he took of Clenney. This is them together back in 2017, I think. Maybe it was 2016. But yeah, this goes in line with what she said on the We in Miami podcast, where it's like, I only date black men. I only date, let me clarify that, rich black men. So possibly seeking people that could advance her financial and social status. And then let's see. So Samurai as, yes, because he was also sleeping with her. This was at the same time that he was caught up on a rape charge as well. Yes, I'm not familiar with the background on any of that. But I'm imagining if Courtney clocks the jaw and he's married, wife is going to ask, hey, why is your jaw broken? And we know that he has ex-wives, right? So definitely some noise there. And hey, cutie, how are you? It was just a matter of time before he killed her. This is not Minority Report. Yeah, right? The way that they do some of the reporting here, the framing. Yeah. Interesting framing. And then David C. Yep. So the chances of him dying like that is 1 in a million. She is not a knife throwing expert. And to me, it's like, I'm not sure why the defense feels the need to prove that it's possible. Like, maybe just to add credibility, right? Maybe the idea is to preserve the credibility because they know that her claim is going to come in, that interrogation footage is going to come in. So maybe the whole purpose of them using the demonstrative with the knife-throwing expert that has no CV letter and he's never testified in a trial before as an expert witness, maybe that's all just to establish credibility because they know the jury's going to see her claim in interrogation. No, that would have been ridiculous or insane if I'd actually stabbed him. I threw it and I didn't expect it to hit him. So maybe this is all for credibility, not to say intent or not intent. I don't know. And then Samurai says, what the doctor is stating is there's no way to puncture the thermal, was it thermal? I don't know the actual term, artery by throwing that night because it's not going to hit the chest plate. Yeah, and I think TMZ was kind of sneaky in showing that one tiny clip. The medical expert was on the stand during the bond hearing for a decent amount of time, and TMZ pulls that one clip like, it's possible, yeah. So... And then Rosemary, whether she testifies or not, she will get off because the world sees a big, scary black man. Yeah, you know, again, and, you know, I do have a little bit of faith because Miami's pretty diverse, but, you know, I know that there's also a lot of, you know, racism isn't literally black and white. There can be some animosity between, you know, not Hispanic community, but some Hispanic individuals and some how they feel about the black community. So, on one hand, I'm like, cool, we might have a diverse jury because it's in Miami, which is like a melting pot. But diversity in general doesn't mean it will be a jury that looks and understands how Christian Obumseli could have been treated by the law, by Courtney Clenney, by the family, by the court of public opinion, right? So you never know. The prosecution seems pretty... And I don't like to give prosecutors any benefit of the doubt, but I do think the prosecution seems like they've got their ducks in a row and they'll do a good voir dire. J-Rock says if she threw the knife and thought it wouldn't even hit him, that means he wasn't an immediate threat in my mind. Right? I wouldn't want to harp on this point. I just strategically, if I was the defense, I don't want to harp on this point. She was so far away from him and she threw it and it just happened to land and it's possible it can land that way. I would not want to keep highlighting that they were far apart. And then this is Rubik. Okay, yeah, okay. So guys, to me, YouTube sometimes, when someone comments on a video versus when they speak in a live chat, I think usernames are different. Like, one will show a display name and one will show a handle. So sometimes if you guys comment a lot or chat a lot, when you do the other, I don't recognize, but now I know. Thank you, Samurai. You know, Erica, that's a great point. Casey Anthony didn't testify. I don't know. And Biko, she would lose if she goes on the stand. I really don't think she's a sympathetic witness. Just herself, her personality. Her voice is just kind of grating. I know I shouldn't judge someone by the tone of their voice. My voice is grating right now, right? So, and I haven't killed anybody. But, you know, I think possibly if she was a more sympathetic person, there was another woman, not the Sarah Boone trial. There was another Florida woman that killed her husband She was acquitted and she testified. And I think her testimony helped her. Let me look up her name. It was a decent trial. You know, Florida, it was streamed the whole time. Danielle Redlick. I think she, let me pull up a picture of her so you guys, maybe it'll look familiar. Danielle Redlick trial. So that's Danielle here. I personally think she came off as pretty sympathetic. And I think her taking the stand, possibly, again, I don't know what the jury was thinking, but I do think in this trial, her taking the stand could have had a big role in her acquittal. But yeah, Casey Anthony didn't testify. I don't think Casey Anthony comes off as that. She looks kind of cold to me. I don't know what her demeanor's really like, though. Okay, so so Casey Anthony, I think, is from Brevard County, and I'm in Brevard County. And when I moved down here, people would say she would still be out and about at the bars and partying. Like, they would see her. People that I hang out with would talk about seeing her and being raged just by the presence of her. But she would just be out at the bars partying like the community didn't know who she was. Like, she maybe could have moved neighborhoods. But as far as I know, last I heard an update, she lives in like a gated community. And then nobody in an interracial relationship with respect whatsoever. Yeah. So I don't know when that recording actually took place. Presumably it was towards the end, but even if that one recording is from the end of their relationship, she sounds like the same way in so many of these other recordings. It's kind of like, I never want to say someone should have left, but that could have been the only thing that could have saved his life, was his own decision to leave. So 10 seconds can change your life, people. If you are the only person that can remove yourself from a situation, it's going to sound like victim blaming, but if you are the only one that can move yourself out of a situation, it could be the only thing that can save your life. So it's not to blame someone for not removing themselves from something and dying because of it. But sometimes it's the only way out, is to do it yourself. And then, yeah, Ghost, so I agree. She was never afraid to hit him. Why would she ever be afraid to stab or throw the knife? I'm not sure if she did it on purpose or not, but I felt like she threatened him with it. And in the heat of, let's see if you're... And then, okay, so I thought maybe you'd continue, but your next comment, you say reverse engineering sounds likely. Yeah, I really think they heard that recording and just wanted to retrofit it to this theory that Courtney was trying to get out of their relationship. You guys had a ton of thoughts there. And then, hey, Juanita, thanks for stopping in. Yeah, so Samurai, this is a big question for me. So let's talk about TMZ's framing a little bit here. We've had some comments interjected here. But how did TMZ not mention her past stabbings? Why would TMZ take this offer to do the documentary? That's crazy. So the offer to do the documentary is, it's going to get plays, it's going to get talked about. I think that's part of the reason they wanted to keep mentioning Kim Kardashian, which you didn't see in this video because I cut it all out. But oh my God, they were like 10-second blocks here and there, before commercial breaks, after commercial breaks, where it was just showing Kim Kardashian on the red carpet. And it's like, we get it. We get it. Courtney Clenney wanted to be that type of person that would commodify a lifestyle, right? And make money off being a lifestyle influencer with some adult entertainment mixed in. Yeah, but they go in, they spend all this time talking about Kim Kardashian, but they don't mention anything about prior relationships. And they do have that one interview with the set of 3 friends. That interview was from a News 10 article, so maybe they couldn't include longer clips. They could only use a small part out of fair use. But I feel like they could have gotten more statements from people. It seems like they went out of their way and got statements from 2 OnlyFans models, which would get a lot of clicks and attention for being part of this docuseries, right? I think TMZ, even though they do some good reporting, sometimes they're the only place to get a detail first. I do think they also know how to create a story, how to create drama, how to create something that's kind of magnetic and makes people want to watch. And I think that was part of the strategy behind this. 60 minutes after commercials, it was like 42, 45 minutes. They were looking for the viewership more than the evidence. And then Shahid says, in Florida, you can give all the evidence that shows he was murdered and they will still find her innocent. That is how racism in Florida is. So I am kind of hopeful about it being Miami-Dade versus Florida, right? That's definitely a different demographic. But at the same time, I mean, like I said, a diverse jury pool does not necessarily mean someone that's sympathetic to the idea of, hey, it's weird that she was using racial epithets against her boyfriend. Diverse does not mean they're thinking about it the way we are. And then that is familiar. So Carly's saying, I'm 90% sure that they met until I read that somewhere too. When his friend and business group linked with the OnlyFans girls. That group would fly all the girls out and pay for their accommodations for them to film content. So I'm interested if she's using that connection to say that she was trafficked. But him and her seem to instantly start filming that trip. And I think that's a great point. So even though with TMZ here in this docuseries, we get the implication through the OnlyFans model's little bit of statement, we kind of get that little breadcrumb dropped about drugs on a platter. Oh, you're just handing drugs and he likes her when she's effed up. We don't really have TMZ at all come out and say that that's what was going on. We don't have them imply human trafficking at all. So I think TMZ didn't want to get in hot water for that, but there is talk about this human trafficking theory floating around. It's originating from the defense, but there are some news outlets talking about it, and this idea that, you know, she's obviously in the sex industry. She's working on OnlyFans. Her income is from OnlyFans. If you ask me, you're an independent contractor when you work for OnlyFans. But in theory, I guess you could be forced to do it by somebody. However, we're finding out that she was rising through this. She was stripping, then started doing OnlyFans. It seems like her entryway into this and her entryway into meeting Christian was all consensual. She wasn't forced into any of these order of events. So I'll be really interested to see if the defense still wants to attack this angle of human trafficking in the trial. And if they decide to go that route, I can't wait to see your guys' reaction to it. And then, hey, Wonder Woman. And then let's see. Let's get to wrapping this up. So Samurai has a closing thought on Casey Anthony. She used her attractiveness and her motherly instincts to show off the goods when she was on trial. You know, I didn't really watch that trial, but I know there was a lot of camera time. I've seen some streamers go back and cover it. It seems like a lot of the time the camera was, she's sitting in the back of the courtroom. She's not even like, it's just like focused on her a lot, which isn't unusual, right? You want to show both parties in a trial and show their facial expressions. But I do think there was a lot of camera coverage anchored on her. Even when witnesses were testifying, they'd still show her most of the time more than the witness. And then I wonder if this was a cry to get Kim K to look into it with the Innocence Oh my God, I hope not. Oh, that's okay. So Ghost is saying I might be reaching, but that is a thought, right? So Kim Kardashian, she passes her bar. She wants to do a lot of like Innocence Project work. Oh my God. I think it would be a bad look for branding for Kim Kardashian, even if Courtney Clenney is innocent, right? Even if she's justified, I still think it would be such a gray line that it'd be a bad look for Kim Kardashian to come and advocate for. I also think Kim Kardashian, she wants to do more like advocacy work, maybe to help people that are indigent. So if Courtney Clenney has all of the money to pay for her defense, even if she's innocent, she doesn't really need that kind of support that I think Kim Kardashian is trying to lend a hand to. Right, I think Kim Kardashian is going the route of helping people that otherwise couldn't afford a defense or have already gone through trial and couldn't afford the defense during trial that could have helped them get acquitted. I hope Kim Kardashian stays away from that if that was their... I really think they were just name dropping Kim Kardashian to make it juicy for TV viewers, but you never know. And yeah, that's dangerous too. So Biko says Kim would lose the last of her Black audience, in my opinion. Yeah, probably. So let's wrap that up, guys. If you have any other thoughts, drop them in the live chat while it's still going. If you're watching this on replay, leave a comment wherever you're watching it. And you guys all take care. If we get a news update about, there's supposed to be some judge rulings today about press and evidence and whether or not it's going to become public record for the Courtney Clenney trial. If we get rulings from the judge, I'll do an update, whether it's a post or another video if there's enough information. But until then, this is the newest stuff we've got on this case. If you're here because you've been following Jonathan Majors stuff, I do have all my documents together to do a video on case law relating to one of the motion to set aside the verdict grounds that Priya Chaudhry raised. I'm sure it'll be an appeal issue too. But I did go through some of the case law to look at in New York State that there is precedent to reverse a verdict and remand back for retrial cases where the jury, the court did not read the justification charge to the jury. Even if it was a reckless charge, doesn't have to be intentional. Even if the defense didn't request that this justification charge be read, there's case law that supports that it should have been read anyway, and that by not reading this charge to the jury, a new trial was warranted. So I'm going to go through that case law, probably record that today, maybe get it published tomorrow. You guys stay tuned for that if you are Jonathan Majors case followers. Everyone else, thanks so much for your thoughts on this interview. Again, it always makes me feel relieved that I don't think I'm overanalyzing or I'm the only one seeing something. You guys give me a lot of peace to think that I'm not crazy in the way I react to things. So I appreciate you guys being here, and you guys all have a great day or evening wherever you are. Take care.